Theresa May has cut short her holiday to the Italian lakes to have Brexit talks with the French President. The Prime Minister is meeting with Emmanuel Macron at his summer retreat, with the French media widely reporting that this is a sign of British weakness and a cry for help. It comes as the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, says the risk of a no-deal Brexit is uncomfortably high. Nabila Ramdani is a French political journalist and commentator. Hello, Nabila.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for your time. I was reading in The Guardian that they said one Whitehall source suggested that France had been the most disobliging of the EU 27 when it came to the negotiations on Brexit. Is that your understanding as well?
Well, I think that's quite right. I think the general tone about the meeting is also reflected in the French media, and it is one of relaxed disbelief, I have to say. Here we have an extremely polite, decent Prime Minister from the United Kingdom meeting an equally pleasant French head of state. They broadly have the same world view and indeed political views, and yet they will be discussing how Britain can best distance itself from the European Union. And the French media is not as tough as the British one, and there's indeed a huge amount of respect and dare I say affection for Britain displayed in most of coverage of the UK. But they know that this meeting is by definition one about a negative subject, no matter how much efforts are made to dress up Brexit as something positive as far as the EU is concerned. The reality is that France's loyalty, number one loyalty, is first of all to France, but the EU comes a very close second, it has to be said. So that's precisely why, Theresa May and her husband will be arriving at the palatial Fort de Brégançon. This evening they will be treated to what promises to be a lively dinner, but I really don't believe it will have any long-term impact on Brexit negotiations whatsoever. Really? Macron, who is arguably the most pro-Europe president in recent French history, and don't forget that France is also one of the founding fathers of the entire EU project. So this idea that the French president will allow a British exception over the Brexit deal is, I'm afraid, total pie in the sky. But, one can understand exactly why this meeting has been organised, and that's because Mrs. May wants to be seen to be working through her holidays for a meeting with the most powerful politician in the EU at this moment.
Is there a political upside for Macron in being tough with Theresa May when it comes to Brexit, perhaps to keep domestic suggestions or anti-EU feeling in France at bay?
No, I think he's just trying to, he will, of course, be very civil, very polite, and one can easily be fooled by the good manners and general civility of decent leaders. But I think he'll make it clear that that shouldn't be mistaken for a strong working relationship with Mrs. May. But of course, there will also be a lot of pragmatism as far as Mr. Macron is concerned. And actually, Jeremy Hunt hinted at that during his own visit in Paris last week, when he called for pragmatism and saying that France is also aware that it has a lot to lose from a no deal. And this ranges from the possibility of chaos in channel ports to some 300,000 French nationals having to think about returning home and indeed leaving the UK. And there's some view that the defence industry will also suffer from cooperation to job losses through firms with Franco-British links, but also the economy and trade could be threatened if the whole system of free circulation of goods, services and indeed people is put into question. Having said all that, I think, there will be, the French view now is that the reality of Brexit is not seen as a crucial story for the future of France anymore. I think France will continue to approach the problem in a more pragmatic manner rather than wasting too much time and energy with the politics of it all. For example, the French have put together a Brexit unit in the French administration. And it's essentially, appointing technical committees, that is to say, highly specialized task forces to deal with problems generated by Brexit. For example, they are preparing to keep the traffic moving at ports like Calais, and this involves the employment of hundreds of new custom officials. So the French are very much looking at non-ideological solutions to Brexit, but very practical ones.
Yeah. Nabila, thank you very much. Thanks for your insight. Nabila Ramdani, French political journalist and commentator there.